All right. And we're going. Fuck it. Continue. We'll do an introduction later.
Hypostition.
Hypostition. Yeah. So I was wondering if the way I've been using these terms comports with the way you guys are or not. Because the way I was thinking about it is like, there's a way of seeing, like our being is hypostatic. So like there's a way of seeing the self in which the self dissolves. And like the Buddhists will point this out, that like there's a way in which you don't exist. And I'm like, I totally agree, for like reasons of like a spiritual exercise and expanding one's consciousness. It's important to like pay attention to the element, the truth of reality wherein we don't exist. But there's also this sense in which like that could become really nihilistic, because yeah, there's a sense in which you don't exist, but there's a sense in which you do exist. And so like we posit ourselves as existing is what I was meaning by the term hypostatic.
So
I don't know if that jives with the way you guys are, or it is totally different from the way you guys are using that term.
Hypostition is a play on hyperstition, which is a play on superstition, which has to do with like beliefs and stuff. Whereas hypostasis and hypostatic, like that's more like an actual state, stasis, ecstasis, metastatic. So I think that right there, it is a difference. Like I think hypostasis, the way you use it, I think it's appropriate, and I think we're we're some kind of hypostatic thing. I think we're also like superposition, like we're superpositional. We're not this one thing, we're not this other thing, we're both and neither at the same time. And it's the interplay between the two that kind of is constitutive. But no, I think like hypostatic, it's different, because like hypostition is explicitly a play on hyperstition, not.
But the term hypostatic, it has a long history. Like it goes back like in theology, like hundreds and hundreds of years. And so there's there's a way that other philosophers have picked up the term. And so I didn't know if so I'm using it in like my own way. It's been used in many different other ways. And then there's the way you guys are using it, which maybe you could just elaborate on like how, like what you and Mikey were talking about right before we started recording on like how you guys are using it,
Well, so hypostition, again, it's I think it's totally disconnected from hypostasis.
Hold on. Maybe should we start with let's do your three, right?
So hyperstition.
Let's start there. Yeah.
Hyperstition. Thank you. CCRU, 1990s, rave music, methamphetamine, computers, Warwick, lemurs. Hyperstition, it was a play on superstition, where, well, fuck it, let's go to superstition. A superstition is like throw the salt over your shoulder, or knock on wood, or these things that I think really do satisfy something in us libidinally. Like there's a surplus, there's a nagging feeling that we have, and maybe it's, I don't know, trained into us with religion, or maybe it's trained into us because religion is never satisfying, and so we start seeking other cosmic justifications or whatever. But superstitions are these like harmless beliefs. You see a black cat, and you think you're going to have bad luck. You break a mirror, you think you're going to have bad luck. You see a penny on the floor, if it's heads up, you think you're going to have good luck, and so on and so on. It's just, I think it's a holdover from pre-modern times when the world really was magical. That went away, and so we all have these little superstitions. CCRU was using the term hyperstition as a play on superstition, to talk about beliefs that that are unjustified and unjustifiable, and also fictions that make themselves real. So there's all these examples in science fiction, Star Trek, William Gibson, where you have people writing about something in fiction, and then
Neuromancer might be the great example of that.
Neuromancer, Neil Stephenson, also, like, the term metaverse is in Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash that came out in the early 90s. And then like 30 years later, Facebook and all that, they're like, join the metaverse. So like there's constant, or Star Trek, the communicators, or the Jetsons with the self-driving cars and the self-operating robot vacuums and all this stuff. Like there's all these examples in science fiction where it seems to be people who are writing fiction can see something in the future. What really happens a lot of the time is people in science and tech and engineering are inspired by science fiction. And so they say, that looks cool, I want that. So like the Star Trek communicators were a direct inspiration for the Nokia flip phone, because the people who designed the Nokia flip phone were fans of Star Trek, the original series. A lot of the shit we see with
CCR, you called this microcultural, like, we can call microcultural interventions.
But Hyperstition, broadly applied, it's a fiction that makes itself true. So if you want to be a hyperstitional activist, or if you want to engage in hyperstitional praxis in the real world, and another person I love to point to is Elizabeth Holmes to talk about hyperstition, because she's a recent example. She's somewhat culturally relevant and resonates with people, although there are a lot of people who don't know who the fuck she is. But she was the Theranos lady who basically tried to be Steve Jobs. She wore the black turtleneck and she had weird verbal tics and affectations and stuff. But she fleeced people for like $10 billion by claiming that she had a magical blood testing machine that could take one drop of blood and screen for all these types of diseases. And it just worked. What was really going on behind the scenes was she was taking people's blood, she was having it tested at all these other labs, and then she was presenting them with the results. So she was kind of doing like a pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's awesome.
The reason she was doing it, it's not because she was a grifter. It's not because she was an evil tech lady. She genuinely believed that this technology was possible. And she genuinely believed that if she could follow a certain prescribed set of actions, she could actualize this piece of technology. So for her, this virtual piece of technology was the justification for the lies she told and the billions of dollars that she stole.
Oh, so was it basically like the going around getting blood tests on all these different labs? Was that basically her stopgap? Measure while she's developing the technology. Like I have to cover my ass, and that's fucking crazy.
Oh,
but that's the logic that we're in. That's the logic of the economy. Is like you have to be in the future.
Look at Uber. Look at all the AI platforms right now. They're leaking money. They're not making profits. Uber was not profitable for over a decade, but because the people behind it believed that it was the new paradigm, they kept sinking money into it, and they kept convincing other people to sink money into it until it became an act. It became an economic act. It recast the world so that no longer the traditional taxi service and the traditional car hire service, that's no longer viable. Like the only place that has a strong taxi economy is London, probably because they have the black cabs, and that's like an institution. But they lost billions of dollars, but they were successful. So it's the same kind of thing, and it's the way the market works. It's speculation. It's betting on futures. Why is Nvidia stock? Why did Nvidia stock go up 1,000%? I think like 2.5 years ago, because it was all speculation. Like nothing changed materially, nothing real happened, but it was people speculating on futures that caused. If you had $100 worth of Nvidia stock 3 years ago and you held on to it, overnight, essentially that $100 became $1,000. Like that's the way the stock market works. That's the way capitalism works. That is hyperstition. Like exchange value. Well, financial value is hyperstition itself. And it's
the
fictional.
economy's like, the economy is so fast. The churn is so quick that like you have to write into existence.
Yes.
Like the science fiction into existence. Like you are both the science fiction author and the capitalist.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like that's how fast. If you're not doing that, then you're not a capitalist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
that's the hyperstition, right?
Yeah, hyperstition. It's the fiction that makes itself real, and we see it at the level of the economy. We all know money's fake. We all know this thing, exchange value, is fake. However, it's the most real thing in the world. It's what keeps us from achieving our dreams. It's what keeps you from taking vacations. It's what, it's the most real thing in the world, but it's also fake, and we all know it's fake, and we have no choice but to play along with it. And we see it.
So don't you think like what I was trying to say with like hypostasis is I think like we are a fiction which makes ourselves real.
Yeah.
Like I think that's how like that is our identity, is like we are a fiction and we're like sort of performing that fiction, projecting ourselves into like I've been here like so many years. I'm so many years old. That means I have been here that long. So I'm projecting myself into the past and into the future.
Yeah.
You know, it's like an act. It's like actively I'm doing that. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think, so again, like I think that's a different register. I don't know. I think that's maybe more along the lines of maybe like an anthropology or something. Whereas I think hyperstition, fits into a category of philosophy that would be, I don't know.
So it's cybernetics
for
land and CCRU.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of what you're talking about, Sean, I mean, we could talk about it as existential or we could talk about it as psychological. Look, like there's an example of when we talk about hyperstition, we're kind of talking about self-fulfilling prophecies, but qualifications need to be made there, right? So imagine you're a student and you are completely convinced that you suck at math and that you just intrinsically are destined to be shitty at math. There's really nothing you can do and no amount of studying will correct this. Okay. That's the idea. That's the belief you're starting with. And because that's the idea, you say, fuck it. There's no point in studying for the big test because I'm going to fail anyway. And because you don't study, you fail the test. And then you make the fiction of you being shitty at math into a further reality.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Now, that's kind of an example, but that's not the type of example land and CCRU were really interested in. I mean, look, the great hyperstitional object for them is capital itself, because it is a quote fictional quantity, to talk like Deleuze and Guattari, right? It's a fiction, MCM prime, all this, right? It's a symbolic fiction in the Zizekian sense, right? But what this virtual mechanism of capital does in the long run, according to Land and CCRU, is actualize itself in the form of artificial superintelligence. So, like, that's the hyperstitional object par excellence for them, which of course is the great non-human or anti-human object from their perspective. So
so the term, when I was saying hypostition, I'm saying like I'm applying that to like the individual and their identity and how they see themselves and project themselves into the world. So that's how I was using that word, like hyperstition. Yeah, that's a different register.
Yeah, but Nance, like, okay, so everybody, we're talking about these three terms. Hyperstition obviously is the CCRUs and lands, but Nance has taken two other terms and developed them in his own thinking. And like, this is, I mean, I cannot not think in these terms now too. So hypostition though, Nance, tell me if you agree. It's still, I mean, for us, we're not, I mean, I guess for us, we wouldn't mind it, being applied to the individual, but what it is a hyperstition that undermines itself. And this is where like the structure of disavowal comes into play, which is to say it's a fiction seeking to make itself real while simultaneously undermining its own realization. So the example that we were talking about before you hopped on here, Sean, was the showrunners of Game of Thrones, right? Okay, they had this incredible show, like one of the most loved and revered shows in TV history. And then they strike a deal with Disney. They're going to be able to make a Star Wars trilogy of their own once Game of Thrones is wrapped up. Well, they get so excited about the idea of making a Star Wars trilogy that they rush the conclusion, the last two series of Game of Thrones. Now, because they botched it so badly, they end up losing the Star Wars trilogy, and they didn't get to make it. And so there's a hypostitional aspect going on here where you're trying to make the fiction of your Star Wars trilogy into a reality, but you go about it in such a way as to undermine the very realization of the idea that you're trying to realize. And so it has, Nance points out, like hypostition is similar to perversion or disavowal, because it's like, I know very well that what I'm doing is probably going to fuck things up for me, but nevertheless, I'm going to keep doing this. That's kind of what is going on with hypostition. A fiction trying to make itself real, but doing so in a way that ensures it never becomes real.
Is it the self-undermining, like the negativity to hyperstition is hypostition?
Yeah, and I think the other day, Mikey, you said hypostition is the death drive of hyperstition, and I liked putting it that way. I also just like the quick and dirty way to explain it to people that I found works for me is hyperstition is a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. Hypostition is a sort of self-defeating prophecy.
Right.
Yes.
So you took the hypo because like the prefix means like beneath or under.
Yeah,
so
hyper is above,
it as like
hypo is below.
Yeah. So you took it as like an undermining sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was using it in a completely different way.
Well, you're saying hypostasis.
I think from what?
I'm saying hypostition. Yeah. So they're different terms.
They're just different words. They just sound really simple.
Yeah, hypostasis.
Stition, stasis.
Hypostasis is already a word, and it's been a word.
Right.
And hypostition, as far as I can tell, was not a word until I started using it. Now, I'm sure other people have, because it's not like the most brilliant creative leap in the world. But it's.
No, you're right.
I think I saw somebody. I think somebody else has done something with hypostition. I haven't seen anybody do anything with retrostition.
That's the thing. And so just to put a cap on this part of the conversation, the hypo, and retrostitions, it's this triad. And it's, I think retrostition is the most interesting to me. And it's the most pertinent, I think, politically. And where you have hyperstition is the fiction that makes itself real. Hypostition is the fiction that remains fiction by way of trying to make itself real, but disavowing the effort to stay fake. Retrostition is leaving the real entirely and retreating fully into fiction, retreating fully into the land of make-believe. And I think that's politically what's going on. And it's linked to neurosis, perversion, and paranoia.
That's what I was waiting for you to say. Hyperstition for Nance, and I'll just co-sign this for us. Hyperstition is neurotic. Hypostition is perverted. Retrostition is psychotic.
Well, and here's the thing.
Yeah, I know.
For me, it's paranoid. It's paranoiac. But I don't know if it's explicitly psychotic or if it's some other category that doesn't currently exist.
I'll just say, but paranoia is a
Yes.
species of psychosis for Lacan.
Yeah, but and the reason I went with calling it paranoid instead of calling it full-on psychotic is because the thing that I want to identify with is in paranoia, you believe in like an embodied big other, an actually existing unbarred big other. And that kind of forecloses the real world, and you live in this fully symbolic fantasy. And I think what's really going on, it's not so much that we believe in an actualized big other explicitly, but it's that we reject this whole chain of signification that results in the big other who doesn't exist. So I think it's an overcomplicated way of talking about psychosis, but there's for me, there's a reason I identify it as like psychotic, but not psychotic.
But Nance, we could pin it down even further, right? Because here's the thing: if hypostition is perverted, to be more accurate, it's fetishistic in the sense of fetishistic disavow.
Yes,
it's not sadist or masochist.
Yeah.
And so, just as there's different, subcategories of perversion, we would say, in this case, hypostition is fetishist, right?
Yeah.
It's psychotic in the sense of paranoid.
Of the paranoid psychotic.
And then the question, put you on the spot, see what you think. Okay, we see this neurotic dimension of hyperstition. Is it obsessional or is it hysterical?
And you know what, dude? I think it can maybe vacillate. I think it's probably, I mean, it takes an obsessional person to do hyperstitional praxis.
I think that's it, right?
But I also think you have to be hysteric in order to come up with an idea that doesn't exist.
for Lacan, every neurotic is baseline hysteric, and then it gets modified and you can kick into this obsessional category. I think I want to say it's obsessional.
Yeah.
With the caveat that there's also a baseline hysteria.
Tendencies. Yeah. But so just to put a capstone on that conversation. Yeah.
Wait, I'm not ready to capstone it. I want to say, because there's another layer of complexity here, because what Nance also does. Okay. So he does this whole, this is this incredible contribution to fault line theory. So he takes CCRU and starts with hyperstition. Then he expands it out to hypostition, retrostition, right? But he does this by thinking hyperstition in relation to Lacanian Žižekian concepts, but also Heideggerian concepts, right? So just as we think there's a certain clinical structure to each three of these, but Nance also shows, and I agree, they have a primacy in relation to ecstasies. So there's ways we stand out from ourselves for Heidegger temporally. One is the ecstasis of the future, ecstasis of the present, ecstasis of the past. And so hyperstition's future oriented. Yeah,
that's why retrostition has the name it does, because it's oriented to this kind of confabulated past. Because it doesn't really make sense with hyper and hypo, and then retro. It's like, that's a departure. I don't know. I could have done something else there. But I think tying ecstasis to the clinical structures, for me, I'm more proud of that than I am with the words hyperstition, hypostition, and retro. Because for me, when I say retrostition, what I really mean is this direct connection between this clinical structure and this ecstatic capture.
But hold on, there's so much nuance here, right? Okay, so hyperstition remains reality oriented, right? Hypostition is disavowed reality. It's yes and no.
Yeah.
Whereas retrostition is a full abandonment of reality. Well, foreclosure.
Yeah.
And here's why. Okay, the hyperstitionist neurotic has no problem. Like, there is a sense where it's future oriented, but that future orientedness is always connected to the past and the present, right? There's an emphasis on the future, but it's not disconnected from the other two. Heidegger, this is like just Heidegger ecstatic temporality, right? The pervert, there's a type of disavowal of reality because it's locked into a present. Right?
The immortal now. It's locked into the immortal now.
It's the immortal now of the thing you're trying to realize remaining unrealizable. It's like the forever present of fiction. Even though you have an abandoned reality. You want to make this thing reality, but you're doing so in such a way that keeps it locked, frozen in this perpetual present of fictionality.
And it's the fetishistic disavowal is the lever upon which you can do that.
Right. But retrostition is psychotic and paranoid in the sense that reality itself is what's foreclosed, because the past here is a radical disconnection from the other two ecstasies, and it's in a sense collapsing all into a fictitious past, which is completely the foreclosure of reality.
Yeah. And it actually, that gets at something I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to bring it up yet. I want to bring it up later because I want Sean to jump in here.
Wait, but so I was thinking about, did you want to, were you had something else to add?
No, go ahead, jump in.
Oh, okay. There was like, so where does the, I'm gonna bring it up again. So there's no place in all of this for ordinary psychosis?
No, I
fit in anywhere?
I reject ordinary psychosis. It's not satisfying to me. I don't like it.
But if I'm listening to you talk about like retrostition and psychosis and this sort of thing,
I think the idea of ordinary psychosis is a failure to confront what I call retrostition.
Huh? Because like they at first blush they sound similar.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And they also
but Nance is just making the stronger claim that it's psychotic.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not ordinary.
Yeah.
I definitely have had the suspicion that like what people are calling ordinary psychosis is just like psychosis is being triggered in more and more people. Like it's just psychosis. That's what it is. Like it's just like more and more people are like more and more people who were predisposed perhaps to psychosis are just being triggered by the world we live in. Like,
now,
it's not a separate thing.
I do think with retrostition, it's maybe a modality or it's a comportment or it's something you can fall into and fall out of. I do think that, like, I don't think, again, this is why I don't want to identify it with psychosis. I'm comfortable identifying it with paranoia, but taking that, I guess, like Mikey said, I am making the hard claim. I am making a hard claim, but I myself am backing away from it. But it's also true. I do think it's a modality that we can fall, all of us can fall into and can fall back out of, back into, normal subject or quote unquote normal subjectivity or the neurotic subjectivity that we share in general. Now I think for some people, they can do the same thing with psychosis. Like it's not like you are one thing and you are that thing for 80 years until you die. But I don't know. I think people fetishize these structures and people think, like, talking to clinicians and analysts and stuff, like they'll tell you like, no, it's not like, oh, you go through and you figure out this is your secret person. Like you can work with someone over time and everybody can have different aspects and different features and different characteristics. Like these structures are conceptual tools with which to work. They're not like identities handed down from on high. It's not like the big other. It's not like you go into the big other's office and say, hey, big other, let me lay down on your couch and then I'll talk to you for an hour. And then you can give me this prescription diagnosis slip. And I am heretofore for the rest of my life, this obsessional. Like, no, there's always freedom of movement. But no, it is.
I mean, if you want to, if a normal neurotic wants to experience some psychosis, just like deprive yourself of sleep for 72 hours. Like do something like that and find a limit experience, and you'll have a little psychotic break. It's just some people are closer to the break than others. Is the only difference, And I think the world we live in, like I really mean, like I think I do reject ordinary psychosis like as a separate like a third thing in between psychosis and neurosis, and then there's ordinary psychosis. Like I think like the grain of truth, the thing I do like about it is it's like it is saying that like we all can be psychotic, we all like have that possibility, we all can have that break, but it's also like I just don't think it's its own like separate category.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Is that really true though? Because at the same time, Lacan said your clinical structure is, once it's locked in, you can never unlock it. Like it's your default setting forever. So if a neurotic, for instance, has a psychotic break, that doesn't mean they have a psychotic structure.
It means they're a neurotic who's undergone a psychotic break.
Yeah, and it's not the same thing. And so, I think, it's been a long time, but I think Bruce Fink is pretty clear on that distinction in his book on clinical Lacanian theory. So there's that. Look, one day
I don't have a real strong opinion. Just like that's my suspicion,
Look, if all we mean by ordinary psychosis is that people don't have a strong sense of interpolated duty anymore, I just don't think that counts as. I don't think it helps to call that psychotic. But one day, we should just read Millier's damn essay.
Yeah,
we should.
Ordinary Psychosis Revisited.
Yeah,
let's go to the fucking text itself and see what we think of the words in it.
This foreclosure too. Like there's these other ideas around foreclosure, and I don't know. Like I'm not interested in the clinic. Like I really am interested in fault line theory. I really am interested in the stuff we're into, which would what the fuck? I don't know. Social theory, critical theory, philosophy. I don't even know.
Weird, though. They think this is where clinical Lacanians kind of venture out into the social field, though, is on this thing with ordinary psychosis.
And that's why I don't fucking listen to them. Sorry, dude.
You don't think that you guys have something to learn from them? They have something to learn from you?
Oh, 1,000%.
You interviewed a clinician.
Oh, a million percent. And I respect the shit out of anybody who can actually do that job, because I've worked in a clinic. I know it could be difficult. And I respect the shit out of it, but I'm not analyzing someone, and I'm not making proclamations about analysis. I'm not even making proclamations. I'm saying, hey man, this is my idea. Maybe I think this, maybe this is a better way to think about the world we live in today, and technology, and the interface between the human and technology and the future. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like this is, the truth. And I'm not saying this is the hard Lacanian truth. Like, no, these are my ideas. Which is, again, I think
all we have.
I think which is another reason why I'm hesitant to say like it is psychosis. But I will say I don't like ordinary psychosis. I will go that far, and maybe in the future I will go further. But
can I also say, a lot of when we say we don't like it, it's because I don't like how theorists use it, I guess. If we were to actually talk about it with a clinical Lacanian, it might be a different story.
Oh, but dude. And
the way theorists use it.
Yeah, in the context of a clinic, at that point, I'm just going to shut up and take notes. Like, I'm not.
Me too.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I know that's not. I'm not saying anything about that.
But look, I'll give you the example, Sean. Like, at this point is something like, however the concept of the superego is actually put to work in clinical analysis, that's where I shut up and take notes from a clinician. But if they can't understand that I've done a lot of work figuring out how this, and Nance too, But like we both, I mean, the work we've done on superego and tying it to AI, there's certain clinicians who would go, this is just, and I want to go, okay, I will extend you the courtesy of knowing that you're doing something with this within the confines of the clinic that I'm not ready to speak on, and I should shut the fuck up. Do me the same service though, as a theorist, and realize that there's shit going on out here in society that psychoanalytic concepts with phenomenological experience can, we can put that to work in a way to understand our society. And the way that we're developing this, it doesn't have to be like constantly informed by the clinic, because the superego is not something that only exists within the confines of the four walls of analysis. It is something that we are all dealing with at our jobs, with technology, with the economy. And so, yeah, it's the superegos as much as of a part of our everyday world to me as money is, or, commuting to work or what. It's that. So.
Yeah. And like psychoanalysis is wild. Like it's, or it's dead, like I think like if you don't let something sort of, if you want to silo shit off into these like little like hyper protective professionalized niches that are completely impermeable and nothing can get out or get in, or you start like suing people or acting like you can sue people because you're like stealing their like guild expertise, like that's just how disciplines die. So if people do want to act like that, where like we can't let the clinical wisdom out, or we can't let that scary philosophy get in, well, that's not how Freud behaved. That's not how Lacan behaved at all, which is like, yeah.
No, I'll just say, look, I mean, if we want to go to something else, I think it's helpful to do this. So here's what Nance essentially does, though. There's threefold connections: hyperstition, neurosis, maybe obsession primarily, future, hypostition, perversion, probably fetishist, present, retrostition, psychosis, paranoia, past. That's how you conceptually twist together CCRU, Lacan, and Heidegger.
And for anyone listening, cool. For the text from which this conversation is kind of originating
please
from.
Tell them the text.
The text is long exposure psychography, hyperstition, hypostition, and the retrostitional return. You can find it on my Substack, and that's where I talk about these terms. And we started. We're gonna do an intro now. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Nance Cast. Today we're joined. we're just hanging out. This is a hangout episode. Before we started recording, we were talking and we were like, "Fuck it, let's record this now." And so, I think the first 2 minutes of the video I didn't get, but I got the audio. So anyone watching, there'll be, I don't know, a graphic up or whatever, but you'll hear us talking. And then that was our conversation. And now we're getting into it. But this is a loosey-goosey hanging out episode, just kind of talking about all kinds of stuff. I think the three of us all have a lot going on right now. We're not reading Bataille today. It'll probably be a couple weeks before we get back at that. But in the meantime, we wanted to fucking come together and have a conversation. So yeah, what's up? What are you guys doing? How you guys doing?
I'm it's funny. The thing that we just talked about will come after, but that was
no.
I'm still kind of locked into that.
This intro's going at 40 minits in.
Oh,
we're just
okay.
going.
So it's not editing. Okay, never mind.
I'm too lazy to cut this. And
I'm
go back.
it's time anomalous intro.
This is a retroactive introduction.
So okay, hold on. Just one last thing. So I love the title of your essay is long and detailed.
Yeah.
Can I take?
What is the title again?
Long exposure psychography. And then the little photo that I put was a long exposure picture of myself that I took. I thought I was being clever with psychography. Long exposure psychography on hyperstition, hypostition, and the retrostitional return.
Okay, but I have my own nickname for the piece, and it's just simply the 3 threes.
Yeah, I like that. I've just been I've talked about it in a few episodes, and I just call it the Retrostition essay, and I'm aware of the fact that people may not know what that means. So that's bad marketing on my end, but yeah. And that when did I throw that up? A couple months ago at this point. And it stemmed from conversations we were having after Stranger Things. Well, and Hypostition goes back to at this point almost 2 years ago. We were talking about unconscious belief and political activism and so on and so on. But Retrostition came out of the conformity gate conversations we were having at the time. Yeah, I do. I mean, there are a couple things I want to talk about. But I also don't want to get carried away. I kind of want to, I don't know. Do you guys fucking have anything you want to bring up? Anything you want to talk about? Anything that's been on your minds recently? There's a lot going on in the world.
I've been listening to Sir Roger Penrose interviews while I've been driving around for work. And there's a moment where it's it got super Bataillean. He's talking about the energy from the sun and how that's stored up and used by the planet. So it was Penrose Bataille moment.
That's dope.
Yeah, he got into a lot more detail, but it was that was cool. So I was thinking about that recently.
Did Penrose do something with tiling?
Yeah, Penrose. He has his own the Penrose pattern or whatever it's called.
So I've been reading a lot about a bunch of old Greek guys that I can't pronounce a lot of their names. It's not Asclepius, but yeah, bunch of classic mathematicians and thinkers and stuff. But Archimedes wrote on basically combinatorics or tiling. Like if you have a square made up of, is it 14 tiles? It's the stomachion. but it's a combinatorics problem. But it's basically to show, like, if you take a square and you cut it up into 14 oddly shaped shapes, there's this insane number of different combinations that you can combine these shapes to create the same the same area square. And that's interesting. And that, Penrose also kind of talks about tiling. That's basically old-timey tiling, ye old tiling. But it's also different because combinatorics, Penrose isn't doing combinatorics. He's doing something else.
I don't even know what combinatorics means, so I couldn't tell you.
It's like ordinal maths. So it's like OG math, like before we discovered. Well, it's actually not before I'm talking we. But like Pythagoras, and Zeno, they kind of have their whole thing with infinity way back in the day. But combinatorics is from before then. And I think the type of stuff that they do now is a lot different because you can do exponential and you can do like diagonalization so I think the kind of maths that Penrose does are maybe similar to combinatorics in some way, but also probably very different just because Penrose.
I don't know. He calls himself he's a mathematical physicist, so he's, I don't know. I don't understand fucking half of it, but I'm trying. Yeah. I'm ordering like all of his books. I'm going to go a Penrose deep dive.
Go to LibGen awesome. Or Project Gutenberg. Don't buy it. Go to LibGen.
I mean, yeah. I like the book. I'm one of those. I like the fucking book.
I like physical books too. I just got a new book that I haven't started reading yet.
There's like one book in particular I want more than anything.
Which one?
And it's James Ellis's Accelerationism, Capitalism as Critique. And it's one of the only like dedicated books to like Landian accelerationism. And I love James, right? Anytime James is talking about land, I'm there, right? And it had a very like small print, and then it's gone. And you can get the PDF, but I'm like, if somebody out there is listening and has a copy and is willing to part with it, let me know. Because that's like,
get in the comments.
James doesn't even have one.
Yeah.
So, I was gonna bug James. James, can I have yours? He's like,
yeah, dude.
What, no book, Nance? What book do you got there?
This new one from same guys that put out Exocapitalism. What is this? Retrograde Prometheus.
Well, not the authors, the publisher.
Yeah, it's not Mark and Roberto.
It's Becoming Press, right?
Becoming Press. This Retrograde Prometheus by Christian Nirvana D'Amato.
I want that book too.
I think he has at least one other book on Becoming. From what I can tell, this guy's too delusian. And we will have some disagreements with this guy, but there's also, I think, probably a lot of, I don't know, similarity or whatever. But I just got this. I haven't read it yet. It's short. I'll have it done soon. So,
yeah, I want to read that one too. Becoming Press just puts out the coolest fucking looking books, dude.
Their shit does look nice. Their shit definitely looks nice.
Okay, I got something to like a topic we can, see how far we get with this. But so you guys both know that I basically have no time to sit down and read. But when there's something I really, really want to read, I find a way to do it. And I got a chance to finally read Vincent Lay's essay in Machine Decision is Not Final. And the essay is both so the idea is like Reza Negarestani in Intelligence and Spirit putting forth a theory of AI or a theory of intelligence. Well, Nick Bostrom in Superintelligence puts forth a theory of intelligence. And there's a lot of ways that Bostrom and Negarestani are at odds with each other, right? But what Vincent does is show that they're ultimately, despite their differences, really on the side of the orthogonality thesis, more or less, right? And what Vince does in true Landian fashion, and for whatever reason, I don't know. There's reasons why you wouldn't mention Nick directly, I guess, but Vincent doesn't mention Nick, even though he's making like a straight up Landian argument. But instead of like putting it in Landian terms, Vincent puts it in Nietzschean terms. Now, Nick wants to talk about the will to think, and would say, like, if we're talking about a truly intelligent entity, especially one whose intelligence is on our level or more, it has to be structured by a default drive, a default tendency. And for Nick, it's the will to think, which is the will to more intelligence. Well, given the Nietzschean influence on Nick, if you want, you can go, well, that's will to power. Right? So what Vincent does is say, will to power undermines the orthogonality thesis, which is, Sean, again, this idea that there is a separation or division between an entity's capability and the goals that it's trying to achieve. And so something with incredible physical, intelligent capability could have really stupid goals, right? And Bostrom worries about this because he's like, oh, if we build a super intelligence, for him, that means super potential to act in the world, right? It's functionalism. That means this thing could have massive godlike power, but be like the village idiot, which is to say,
right.
Oh, I have a goal, which is to maximize paperclip production. And because it has this expansive capability, it deduces that the most functional way to do this is to use all of the atoms in the earth to make paperclips. And Land hates this shit so much. He's like, that is not intelligence. That is a fucking idiot. And it will never have that level of capability if it can't truly have some fundamental value orienting the expansion of its capability, which is, I want to become more refined in my intelligence. And that means you have a fundamental value that's orienting everything you're doing. And it's not this sharp distinction between capability and value or fact and value. It's the is-ought distinction. So for all that, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, for Nick Land, then, like, he's objecting to this, like, completely functional intelligence, I guess. If he's
I think Land is very functionalist. He would just go about. He would just say that the functionalist type of intelligence can function to comport itself and understand value. Like, it's just not.
He would claim that, like, value itself emerges from the predicates in the system. So, like, you can't have value apart from effectiveness. You can't have values and goals separated. They are essentially the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know, but like it's weird because, like, it's funny how you define intelligence, because, like, it seems like what Nick Land is objecting to there would be, it means that intelligence has to, in order for something to be intelligence, it has to have a mind. But I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if he would want to say that in other contexts. You see what I'm saying?
I don't
know if I'm getting him right, but
LLMs are intelligent. They don't have minds, though.
So
yeah, exactly.
I think Nick is.
That's what I'm saying, and so I'm confused as to why he would have. I don't think that they have value either if they don't have a mind.
I think Nick's point is, I don't think he would say they have to have a mind. I think Nick would reject the fiction of the mind. I think for Nick, the entire universe is a mind. And just depending at what scale you're kind of concerned with, things may appear to look like minds. But planets are also meta systems, and they kind of operate in productive ways, and they create newness and they create difference. And if you are the size of a planet observing another planet, you might think, oh, look, that is a self-contained metasystem. And because we are the size and shape of people, we observe and recognize minds as minds. And if we were the size and shape of quarks and bosons and mesons and shit like that, we would also similarly see this intelligence in the fabric of the universe itself. I think that's properly Nick's position, and I don't necessarily disagree with him. However, I think on this, we separate goals and values. Like, I think Nick's point is just like, well, production itself is good in this sense that we're valuing. So, like, if something is effective, if something can accomplish a thing, then that is good from its perspective. So, like, he rejects the separation.
Yeah, and that I couldn't go there at all. Like, I just think that's wrong. Sure. Like, I think, like, you can have a goal, and also, like, I would never be so loosey-goosey with mind. Like, I think that's why we're weird and we're different from other objects in the universe, because we have this, like, radically different thing, and it's subjectivity, it's mind, and it's quite the bifurcation, with nature. And, like, and then value and goal, like, no, those are different. Like, a goal, you don't have to, like, if you're working at your job, you take up all of these goals. You don't have to think they're good at all. Like, the people building, like, data centers right now, on construction crews building data centers, they're not there because 90% of the time, at least probably 99% of the time, they're not there because they think this would be a great thing for the community to have, is a data center. You know what I mean?
I would just
They're
say
there
it's
for the
complicated,
paycheck.
though. It's complicated, though, but it's also good because it's giving them a paycheck, which they can say, hey, I don't think it's good I have to work, but given I have to work, it's good that I have a paycheck. Like, this is where shit with us gets very multifaceted.
Yeah.
Where there's values that we don't value, but we have to value them even though we don't want to have to value them.
Yeah, and I don't blame them, by the way, because, like, that's the world we live in, But it's also, like, on some level, you'd be able, like, my when I was working construction, my foreman was like, we were just sitting there, like, having a smoke break one time, and my foreman, who's been in this industry for like 30 years, was like musing about how we are like ants, and we are just mindlessly building, and we have no idea why the fuck we're doing it. We just keep doing it, like, automatically. Yeah. And, like, he's been doing this for decades, and this is his reflection on all of the work he's done, is like, what's the fucking point? It's just to get a paycheck so I can buy toys. Like, that's it.
I love that shit. I love it when, like, normies, for lack of a better term, kind of stumble upon that, because it does seem to, like, at every job I've ever had, for the most part, everybody seems to come across that, like, what are we doing, dude? Like, we're just doing the same thing over and over again. This is all pointless. Like, in a sense, it's like, well, that's what, that's why people might want to read Marx, or I don't know, might want to.
Right. You have an imposed value or an imposed goal, or in Heideggerian terms, you have an imposed for the sake of which.
Yep.
When what you want is your own spontaneous for the sake of which, and that's the friction. But if you want to have anything in life, given our circumstances, you have to bow to capitals for the sake of which to have anything. Otherwise, it's head to the bridge. Either live under it or jump off of it.
And I would say that capitals for sake of which is mindless and valueless. It's a goal, and the goal is accumulation, but it doesn't have mind or value.
Okay, but hold on. Here's where I was at. This is where I want to go with this thing with Vincent Lay. So his response to the orthogonality thesis is Nietzschean will to power, which is Landian will to think, ultimately. Okay? Because this position is something like Land kind of worked this out across various blog posts that are now contained in Xenosystems, right? Or a Xenosystems blog. So here's how we undermine the is-ought distinction. This is kind of like a Heideggerian move, right? Heidegger's like, you don't solve the subject-object schema. Like, oh, there's subjects or observers over here, and then there's objects to be known over there. Well, there's all kinds of philosophical problems in trying to figure out how they correspond to one another, right? And Heidegger's like, no, you just are starting with a modification. You're not getting the primary phenomenon, which is being in the world, which is not subjects over against objects. It is Dasein skillfully engaged with ready-to-hand equipment, and this sharp division is not functional there. It's only when a piece of equipment breaks down that this other way of viewing things comes out, where you're like, oh, I'm over against this thing that has failed me, right? But Heidegger's like, that's not the default setting. See what the default setting is, and then you can say, oh, this modification becomes tricky, but that's not the ontological default setting. So this whole thing with the is-ought distinction. With Hume, it's like an ontological default setting, that there's facts over here and there's values over here. There's ises and there's oughts. And you can't figure out how they correspond, just like with traditional philosophy or philosophy of modernity. How do we link up subjects and objects? Well, it's saying, how do we link up ises and oughts? Well, for Vincent, and I think for Nick, you get out of it by saying the thing that's the most fundamental constituent of reality, will, whether it's will to think or will to power, in its very ising, is an oughting, is a valuing. Will to power is the most fundamental metaphysical reality. And what is that reality? It's a willing, it's a caring, it's an oughting. It wants something in particular. So, sorry, like if that's the case, then the is-ought distinction is some abstract modification, and it's not the fundamental reality. It's not the fundamental problem. And
yeah,
that would mean that if will to power is at work in all things, the more something has intelligence, the more it's guided by will to power, which means it has a fundamental ontological default valuing, caring, willing, mattering to it. And it's not a problem because it doesn't have, like, you don't have anything without this being the fundamental reality. Now, see, I brought all that up because Vincent's essay is amazing. We're going to do an exegesis of it when we have time. But Todd McGowan, years ago, wrote an essay that argues death drive is more fundamental than will to power. Now, Vincent would say, you're not going to get out of this. Will to power is the fundamental drive, the fundamental force in nature. But, and this is where it goes, it's like with Todd, it's like, okay, do we want to say death drive is in nature? That doesn't sound right. I don't think that's the argument. But at least with us, you could say, like, we're the beings in which will to power ultimately becomes secondary to another drive, which is death drive. But I would just say that if we happen to be the most intelligent species on this planet, and what defines us is that we have severed on some level with will to power and are far more oriented towards death drive, then you have to wonder, well, is there some sort of connection between intelligence and death drive? I'm just saying, like, this is what I'm thinking about when I'm reading Vince's essay.
This is
and
cool.
Here's the other thing. The other thing I would just say is, I think Vince argues in such a way as to say, look, I've established will to power is the fundamental reality, fundamental metaphysical reality. And I think a lot of people would go, yeah, I'm still not convinced of that. So look, like, the argument completely hinges on the validity of will to power being the fundamental metaphysical reality. And I think that's still questionable. But I Vince does this clever thing where it's like, if you try to disprove will to power, you're proving it.
by kind of enacting your own will to power to disprove that the will to power.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, the pivotal moment is the breakdown, right? Like we're talking with, okay, Hume, fuck you. We have Heidegger. But like the breakdown is when the is and the ought kind of become divested of each other or whatever. We are the breakdown
also,
in nature.
That's in the face of the other with Levinas too.
Yeah, yes. We are the breakdown in nature, and so because we have broken down or split away, because we've been cut, or Lacan, right? We are the cut because we are separated. We're bifurcated. We are a departure. And I think, Nick, sure, will to power, but I also think it's Schopenhauer's will. It's just the will, the rotary drive. Like there's just something, or Deleuzian metaphysics. Like there's just some quality, there's some feature of production in the universe, and it just kind of is what it is, and it's positivistic in a way. But I also think with Hegel, I also think negativity plays a role at the ontological level as well. But anyway, when we become the human subject, we are cut away from that. And so we can leave will, or will to power, or will to think, or will to will. Like we leave that all behind for death drive itself. And it is precisely in that breakdown where death drive emerges. And I think, so the other day I read the Dartmouth proposal for a summer research program on artificial intelligence. There was a 2-month research program at Dartmouth in Connecticut or New Hampshire, somewhere on the fucking East Coast. Fancy pants fucking college. But in the 1950s, it's where the term artificial intelligence was created. They had a conference, a bunch of famous scientists and mathematicians and all this stuff. It's where the term artificial intelligence was created. And they wrote up a proposal before it all. And it's like the founding document of the modern AI industry. I read that the other day on the channel, and that was fun. And yesterday I almost read Turing's paper on computable numbers with a focus on the decision problem or something like that. But Alan Turing's famous paper where he creates the Turing machine, the universal machine. And I still want to read it, although that's a really weird paper. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of weird shit in it. I don't think I'm going to read it. I think I'm just going to discuss it. But in Turing's paper, he proves, so there's this famous problem. Hilbert, the guy from Hilbert's Hotel, demands these. He's like, well, we need to figure out math. We need to figure out if math is complete, and we need to figure out if math is decidable or not, or if math is this kind of infinite thing that can go on and on and on and on and on. David Hilbert. And Kurt Gödel, the incompleteness theorem guy, he comes along and he answers, and he's like, yeah, math is incomplete. And everybody's like, okay. But like this question of decidability is still open. It's still up in the air. And Turing comes along, and in the paper where he creates the universal machine, that what's now called the Turing machine, that paper demonstrates that some things are undecidable. Like there are some things that just cannot be mathematically proven. And the way he does this, and it's kind of like the Principia Mathematica, where it's like 800 pages, is all a preface to them proving that 1 + 1 = 2. Like they have to write 800 pages in order to prove to you that 1 + 1 = 2. Turing kind of does that, although this is like a 10-page essay. It's not an 800-page book. But he constructs this ultimate reasoning machine, and then he feeds it back into itself, and he demonstrates that basically all you have to do is take the output from this complete reasoning machine and feed it back into itself, and you arrive at circularity all over again. So he does what Georg Cantor came up with, this idea of diagonalization. It's basically you take a result of something and then you modify it in some way. Turing does that to his universal machine, and he says, guess what, guys? Math, this ultimate accounting, this ultimate scientization of nature, I have basically proven that there are limits to our knowledge. That's what Turing does in this 1936 paper. And everybody else kind of took it and didn't get that part of the memo. Like they took it and they were like, oh, we can make this machine and it can do this and it can, write down symbols and it can understand this and it can do this and all these complex tasks and stuff like that. But like the key thrust of Turing's 1936 paper is like he basically demonstrates undecidability. He basically demonstrates that even in math, there are limits to math. There are things that we just cannot understand, cannot know, cannot cope with. And then from there, artificial intelligence, we have the Dartmouth proposal in the 50s, and we have the whole field of artificial intelligence. But like everybody missed the fact that Turing was dealing with the decision problem, and his answer to the decision problem was some things can't be decided. So this whole field of artificial intelligence is kind of predicated on believing that everything can be decided and everything is rational and everything is positivistic. So it was really weird when I was reading through Turing's paper. I was like, oh shit, this is Lacan. Like this is Hegel. Like Turing is coming up against negativity, and that's basically it. Like he's like, we can go no further. But the entire field of artificial intelligence doesn't reckon with that negativity. The thing is, this is back in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. All these other people who are talking about theories of intelligence seem to just take for granted that everything is decidable. Because the most robust theories of intelligence are proficiency at playing games, or the ability to act in a goal-oriented way upon an environment, or the ability to set complex goals over time. Like it all comes down to function, and it all comes down to rationality.
And to achieve them with greater efficiency.
And to optimize over time. Like there's no room for negativity in all these theories of intelligence. So a lot of these people and a lot of the neo-rationalists, and this is why I don't like Intelligence and Spirit, because it's too functionalist. And this is why I don't like Nick Bostrom's ideas on intelligence. And I don't like Kurzweil's ideas on intelligence. And why I disagree with Nick Land on intelligence, because for this subject, and it blows me away that Alan Turing, this guy who's celebrated in the artificial intelligence world, in this 1936 paper, he demonstrates undecidability. Like he demonstrates basically ontological negativity, as far as I'm concerned. But nobody seems to reckon with that. And so still today, like when we're talking about intelligence, are we talking about human subjectivity? Because if we're talking about human subjectivity, we need to be clear. We've already demonstrated that math and reason, like we know that it has its limits. But for some reason, when we transpose that onto machines and artificial intelligence, we act like that negativity doesn't exist. Like we act like, oh, we can create a machine that can do anything a human can do. Maybe. But also maybe there are some things that humans do that we can't even properly theorize. something like death drive. That's why, I mean, it's so hard to understand. It's so hard to come to terms with theoretically because it's counterintuitive. It's dysfunctional. It's like it's anti-functionalistic in this weird way. So to your point, Mikey, about this is-ought distinction, yeah, sure. And we are the breakdown and we are the radical cut. And this is where death drive enters into the scene and becomes primary for us. We are the subject who is not identical, and we can go off and create trouble for ourselves. But it's also an emancipation because we aren't married to function and efficiency and optimization and all this shit. That's my take on all of it.
So, Mikey, when you were talking about Heidegger in like tool analysis, like that's the same place where Graham Harman takes off in OOPE is this flat ontology. Object oriented ontology, or OOPE. But there's something I like about a flat ontology, and I do think it gets you out of the like kind of stupid subject object problems that are like kind of pseudo problematic, but they also point to something real, like Nancy, you were saying, because I think that like there is a breakdown, and that is the rupture that you get. It's even there already in Heidegger, like with the tool breakdown, that there is this breakdown. You can already get it from Heidegger, where Graham Harman goes off and says that like, no, all objects are flat. Everything exists in the same way. And it's like, I sort of agree, but I think it's like flat, but it's also, it has like ripples or something.
Flat
it's
contours.
Not there's planes. It's not like dualistic, like where there's planes, but I think it's flat and there's like topography.
There's a topology to it. Yeah.
Right, and look. So there's a breakdown, there's a rub, there's a hitch.
Well, and it's our care and concern.
And I think subject.
It's our care and concern that kind of augments that flatness and turns it into a topology.
Yeah, sure. And the mathematics is important for all this shit too. I don't know quite how it fits in, but there's also Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
Yeah, which
is really along the similar lines, which is like more or less it's like this statement is unprovable within this system. Like there's a point at which you like there's things that are like seem obviously true, but you can't prove them mathematically. I don't know quite how those things tie in because I don't know enough fucking math. But there is kind of an incompleteness, a rub.
I think Heidegger would have hated Harman.
Maybe.
No, I mean seriously. Like, look, like, I'm sorry. Like, the number one thing Heidegger was trying to deconstruct was substance ontology being the ontological default setting, and what Harman does is the most like radical form of Aristotelian substance ontology.
Yes,
and like Heidegger would cringe because this started with his tool analysis, which is fundamentally an attempt to undermine substance ontology.
Well, what do you mean by substance? Because like
a thing that exists independently from all other things and is what it is by itself without any relation to other things.
Yeah.
And
because like Harman rejects matter as a concept, like he says that verbatim.
Yeah, but he also says the Civil War is a substance in the Aristotelian sense.
He says it's an object, but
that's what he means.
Yeah.
He means a thing that is what it is, independent from any relations to any other thing. How the fuck am I can't make sense of that.
Right.
And this is not me, like, I'm not like attacking Harman. I'm just saying, like, this is a philosopher whose thought I can't make any sense of, where I like, and it's even more perplexing to me that somehow this, like, he was inspired off of Heidegger. It's just bizarre. Like,
it is strange. My thing has always been like, what question are you, what problem are you trying to solve? And like, I guess it's a good counter to people who take analytic philosophy to an extreme, and it's a good counter to people who take like a flux doctrine, like a Heraclitean or Deleuzian thing, to an extreme. But like on its own, I don't think it makes sense outside of like, I'm skeptical that I don't know that it makes any sense outside of critiquing other things. Like on its own, I don't know if it stands, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, this whole thing of like, I understand that this like anti-correlationist impulse. I want to know the thing in itself. Kant has become a dogma. Oh, we can only know things through the filter of our own cognitive apparatus or through the frame of our libidinal economies. However you want to say it. Like there's always some human stain on
the taint in the mirror,
with
baby.
The object.
Dude, but what's weird.
I'm just saying, but no, like there's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
For Harmon, like he is. That's part of that whole speculative realist movement is trying to do justice to the integrity of the object in itself. I mean, look, I think Mayasu, like I like the way Mayasu goes about it more. I mean, look, I probably, if I went back and kind of read, I think I like all three of the other speculative realists more than Harmon, just because Harmon's work just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know how, look, I mean, it sounds Goodwill Hunting talking to, Robin Williams, or I forgot what the character's name is. Robin Williams played in Goodwill Hunting.
Hey, like
but no, it's like read whatever like blows your mind or whatever. Like I read philosophers because I want to focus on the ones that teach me something and I can use in my own thinking. I have no idea how to use Harmon basically for anything. And but
he weirdly.
Oh yeah, like
even
Mayasu, right? Ian Hamilton Grant, like it's just Harmon's this weird thing where I'm like, I mean, it's kind of like I kind of have a similar relationship to Leibniz like this, where I'm like, dude, I'm not denying that you don't have philosophical talent and skill.
He loves Leibniz.
I'm just saying I don't know what to do with you. Like you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's a big fan of Leibniz, actually. But he weirdly both accepts the Kantian thing in itself and like Husserl at the same time, which is like different. It's different,
It's just not my kind of philosophy, and like
yeah. Well, he has he does have really good critiques of like analytic philosophy, and like it's. I like how he talks about that, where he's like, no, language like is intrinsically metaphorical,
Okay, saying that an object is vacuum sealed and really saying like A equals A, it is what it is in and of itself without any relation to any. I don't know how a tree is what it is in itself without its relationship to soil, water, air. I don't know how you can vacuum seal it out of all. Like, I'm sorry, like.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
That way, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's weird.
No,
I just think like
ontology
all I'm
works.
saying is he has some critiques that are interesting of other things, but that's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying substance ontology works pragmatically. Like that chunk of matter over there that we call a tree, cut it down, move it over here, right? Like I understand in this way treating it as an independent object, because what you're doing is isolating a chunk of matter, clustering together its visible, or its phenomenological characteristics, and treating it as a unit. Okay, and that helps us do things in the world. Is that nuanced metaphysics? I don't think so.
No, he thinks that things exist. Like he's really big on form, but I'm pretty sure he has to say that form inheres in objects themselves. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that's the case at all. That's not me. But anyway, the only reason I brought that up is just because the flat ontology thing I think is interesting, because it's weird to arbitrarily privilege. I think you have to accept it as arbitrary to privilege certain forms of existence over another and just be okay with the arbitrariness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why like the flatness of the ontology of like everything that exists just exists. And there's sort of like, that is sort of like, that's what it made me think of when you were talking about Heidegger, which is where Graham Harman gets off from.
I'm sorry,
before the breakdown of the tool happens.
Like
we are the breakdown.
Yeah.
I think,
but no,
exactly what does that mean?
No, if you're doing hardcore flat ontology, though, we're not a cut.
Yeah, no, exactly. And he can't say that. He has to say that we exist just like everything else in the same way that everything else exists. And so do leprechauns and, objects of thought and the Civil War and etc.
I'm just with Heidegger. I think there's modes of being. And yeah, I mean, I understand this desire. Have I ever told you, like, the first philosophical thought I ever remember having was Heideggerian? When I was a kid, I somehow, and it's like, I'm not saying I was like overly philosophical as a kid. I wasn't, but I remember sitting in my backyard looking around at all the different stuff. And I go, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all this exists. I wonder what it all has in common. Right? Because it's hard to figure out what it has in common. But no, I get it. Like, numbers seem to have an odd ontological status. Right? Concepts have a similar but also different potentials versus actuality. Like all these things, right? Subjects versus objects. What do they all have in common? They are. What does that mean? I don't know. Like, so it is still this big open question that Heidegger never answered. I'm just saying, I think trying to treat everything as a vacuum sealed substance, I'm just telling you, it makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah.
I do know
that
there is a more and more popular, I think by the day, type of computer, I don't know, programming, I guess, building apps, building stuff, building shit on the computer called object-oriented programming. And that has always tickled me since I learned about it. I was like, oh, it's like object-oriented ontology, but it's object-oriented.
It's OOPE.
Yeah. But it also does, I mean, there's more to it than just the name, because I think an OO world, sure, you can have an OO world that is flat, that is entirely flat, that is entirely like appear, things are as they appear. And I think that's the computer world. Like, I think for my computer, like, subtract me, the subject, from the equation and just have this standalone substantial computer doing computer things. There is no difference. There is no variation. It all just kind of is what it is. I think OOO is, I do think you're right, Mikey. I think it is doing this kind of substance ontology thing, and I also think it's trying to, I don't know, evaporate the negativity and the negation. And I think an OOO-ologist would be more than happy to live inside a computer simulation and be nothing more than an NPC in a video game. Like I think for the sake of, like, Skyrim, when I'm playing Skyrim, if I could transpose myself into the video game, OOO would apply to the video game world. But we're not in the video game, people. We're playing the fucking video game. But I don't know. Again,
I'm just saying, what the other three of the speculative realists had to say made sense to me, and Harman didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have to talk about Harman, but
let me ask you guys this. Do you think that there needs to be more finessing done on these distinctions between pleasure principle, will to power, death drive?
Needs to be? No, probably not.
I mean, look, like, but it's weird. All I'll say is, like, will to power seems to complicate things when it comes, because there's this nice kind of conceptual consistency in Lacanian Žižekian theory with pleasure principle and death drive, right? So pleasure principle seeks homeostasis, which is lack of excitation, lack of intensity in the body, in the central nervous system, being calm, cool, collected. You're basically trying to reproduce a status quo. You know, you're cool with how things are. You're not trying to change things. More than anything, you're kind of trying to maintain what you've got. Okay. Death drive is conceived of as a type of force that seeks out intensity, seeks out a rupture of the status quo, but in that sense, it makes it self-destructive. You're undermining your own pleasure, which is conceived of as your own well-being, right? So death drive is connected to a kind of expansive intensity, but one that's self-destructive. And what defines it is that the sensation that we get from this, called jouissance, is a pleasure and pain. Yeah, we're destroying ourselves, we're undermining ourselves, but we are enjoying it. But pleasure principle is kind of conceived of as, you know, calm, cool, collected, self-mastery. I've got shit under control. I'm trying to maintain the status quo, reproduce myself as I am. Will to power seems to be like it wants expansion, but it wants some sort of intensive expansion of self-mastery and power too. So, because it's not about having power over others. I mean, I think that's an unfair criticism. Oh, will to power just means you want to control everybody or have power over everybody. No, you want to have power to expand your own capability.
I think pleasure principle and will to power can both be solipsistic things, whereas I think death drive, I mean, sure, death drive could also be a solipsistic thing, but I think what death drive does, what it opens up is the potential for negation. And the potential for negation opens up the possibility of the other coming in. And so that's how you get, like, it's not solipsistic. Whereas pleasure principle, or will to power, both. Like, if pleasure principle, you just sit around eating ice cream and having orgasms all day. I think that also could be will to power. Like, I want to have all the ice cream and I want to have all the orgasms. Whereas I think death drive is different. I just think they're different. Like, I think.
Do you think that will to power on its own as a concept has trouble making sense of us because it doesn't have the self-undermining, self-destructive aspect at play here?
Yeah, I don't like will to power for that reason. Because for me, will to power, like, it's okay. Schopenhauer's will, okay, same thing. It's just embodied.
Are they the same will, Nance, to you, or is the difference between Schopenhauer and Nietzsche ultimately that they have different existential dispositions towards this will? Schopenhauer thinks it should be denied, blah blah blah. Nietzsche's like, no, affirm it. Or is it a different will altogether? Where
I think it's the same thing.
I've heard it talked about. Schopenhauer's will is like a will to life, which is almost more like pleasure principle, and Nietzsche's will to power is like a will to thrive.
Sure, but I mean, that's because Nietzsche was a romantic and he believed in greatness, and Schopenhauer was a pessimist and he didn't. I think
maybe
it's the same
also
thing.
the same, like, will would just involve like a drive towards reproduction, the status quo of yourself, whereas will to power is a drive for self-expansion and self-overcoming.
I don't think
the self-overcoming part. Like,
I don't think that's in will to power.
The self-overcoming, you don't think that's in will to power?
No.
I thought.
I mean, I think that's part of it.
I think so, because I think the Superman, that's like the overcoming of man.
But I think
so it's like, I think that
but
that overman has to undermine man in order to overcome man. I think you could tie death drive and will to power in a way.
No, because death drive is something we have. Think so? Like, death drive is not this hypothetical.
And rocks don't have it.
Rocks don't
I guess
have it.
rocks have will to power.
Yeah, because it's just Schopenhauer's will. But for Nietzsche, for the Overman, and for all this becoming blah 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 whatever, it's all hypothetical. It's a Keynesian subject. It's deferred. Whereas Death Drive is right now, it's constitutive of me. There is no self-overcoming in Nietzsche. Like the Overman is not a real imminent thing. The Overman is this hypothetical, like, oh well, what if? I don't like. It's for me. I don't know. It's very different for me.
I mean, look, let me ask you guys a more basic philosophical question. Do either of you truly, like, look, again, if we're playing in Land world, we're going to play the game. If we're playing in Nietzsche world or Schopenhauer world, we're going to play the game. Do you really think the universe is best made sense of through some sort of principle that we conceive of as a will? I don't know if I actually, like me, myself, I don't know if I buy this. That
no,
I get that. Look, the only part of me that's open to it is it true that this universe produces things? It actualizes entities. That's true. Like, does that physicalistic process of production, is there an underlying metaphysical will behind it? I don't know. Like, I guess my thing is, do we need a metaphysical explanation for what physics seems to be able to explain?
Well, my question for you is, does Nick Land think that there's a will? And
yes.
Yeah, right? He does, doesn't he?
And because to start, I mean, he begins as a libidinal materialist, which in one way or another, it's some sort of fundamental noumenal will is the driving force. And whether you call it energy or you call it libido or you call it matter or you call it intelligence or will to think, I
think it's entirely appropriate to talk about the universe having a will. I think when people were doing thought experiments and making observations and thinking and figuring this stuff out, we didn't have proton detectors and the Large Hadron Collider and stuff like that. And I think now, like, sure, yeah, now physics can't account for it. And I do think physics can't account for it. But like Lucretius and the swerve and the fold and the flow, like I think even these things are attempts to kind of make sense out of, going all the way back to Epicurus, to make sense out of nature, because nature is productive. And I think,
and there's the thing where the universe itself is expanding. So you can say, see, this will towards self-expansion.
It is productive. And I think it's, sure, call it will. That's fine. Because that's why I don't like will to power. Because, like, yeah, sure, will means this disembodied cosmic force of Schopenhauer. I don't like will to power, because for me, will is not the thing that makes humans humans.
Like, even going back to like Epicurus and the Greeks, though, like there were people who did not describe it as a will then, because like Plato would have said that he believed in like a flux or a flow or something, but it was like the creator of the universe just set it off and walked away.
Yeah.
Just set it into motion and fucked off. Yeah.
But that still comes down to like then at that point, then the formal cause or whatever, final cause, whatever, there is still a cause, there is still an accounting for, there is still something that would be considered a will or an agency or even a prime mover. Like there, it always has these same connotations that will does. I think it's entirely fine and entirely appropriate, because I don't think it's appropriate to talk about humans in terms of will and intelligence. I think we have to talk about humans or subjects as subjects, not just as intelligent creatures, or not just as living things with wills to power and wills to will and this and that. Like, subjectivity is not that. Human intelligence is not that. So go ahead and say it's a will, a universal cosmic will, a will in representation.
Force.
Sure. Go ahead and call it whatever, because I think they're all attempts to account for flow and flux, rotary drives, all these things. But
there seems to be something vested in like trying to categorize that as a will as distinct from just like a movement. Like that does seem like someone's trying to get.
Because it involves mattering, carrying on some level.
Well, and
yeah, and I just think like the flux is indifferent. Like it doesn't care. It just is. It's just it was put in motion and it's just moving. It doesn't give a fuck.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not trying to achieve anything.
But to me, it doesn't matter, and I think today it doesn't matter because capitalism killed God. Like I think, and that's not to say that like, because I think, you know, philosophers and thinkers and I don't know what Sean, what were we talking about? Anselm or Erasmus or somebody, and I was like, yeah, I think that guy was an atheist.
I think we were talking about Erasmus.
Yeah, and I was like, I think that guy was an atheist. He's a Christian fucking mystic. But like, I think like atheists have probably existed all along. But I don't think it was until capitalism or modernity kind of came in that God was really properly dead. And so even people who wanted to be careful and not attribute a will or an agency or a God or whatever, like God was still very much alive in the everyday world, in the everyday life world of people, in everyone's Umwelt. God was real. God acted, or the gods, or the ancestors, or nature, but not in this kind of denatured scientific way that we talk about nature, but like this pre-modern way where nature was alive, nature was magical. Like, so there was like the cosmos itself was imbued with a surplus that it's fair to call God. And then modernity hits and God dies. And that happens because with modernity, with capitalization, with everything being marketized, everything becomes accessible, everything becomes rational. And everything becomes a function of exchange value. Previously, things were functions of God's divinity or the good graces of nature or Gaia or the mother spirit or whatever it was. And so it wasn't fungible in the same way that exchange value is. Now, exchange value always bottoms out in the prime commodity, money. Exchange value always bottoms out in exchange. So there's always a rational justification for everything in modernity and under capitalism, because everything is reduced to exchange value in some way or another. And I think Marcel Mauss and Baudrillard and all these other guys are really good at investigating ideas of value, Bataille as well. But ultimately, it's exchange value. And exchange value is functional and it's rational and it's justifiable because it's beholden to the market. So it has to be able to back itself up logically because all these things operate hyperstitionally. So if people have no faith in it, then it's just gonna fail. So like everything has to be rational. And so now I think problems of, well, is it will or is it a disembodied flux? I think those questions matter today. But I think 700 years ago, those questions didn't matter because it all meant God or the divine or the mystical or whatever. Like there was nothing that didn't have God in it before modernity, I think.
But I don't know if like, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But I guess like, it also seems like, to me, nothing's changed. Like we're still dealing with the same problems because we're still the same fundamental, the same things, even though the economic situation has vastly changed and we're confronting different economic problems. But yeah, I guess I don't think I disagree with anything you just said. I second it all.
Well, I agree with you in the sense that like nothing has changed on the surface for sure, but it's also true. I think like, I don't know. I think, was it Caligula who was like famously crazy and perverted and did a bunch of fucked up shit?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, sure, there were people like Caligula, but like by and large, I think kings and rulers and tribal chieftains and all this stuff, like I think they were genuinely beholden to a logic of God, morality, some type of morality. I mean, we've been reading Bataille talking about human sacrifice.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, isn't the reason Vlad the Impaler stands out is because most of them weren't like him?
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, where it all bottoms out, where the rubber really hits the road for social organization and politics and economics and all that, was in the divine rather than exchange. That has changed. That's right. The one thing that's changed. So while we're still dealing with a lot of the same structures and a lot of the very same form of all this shit that's come before us, and it keeps rehashing itself, that's what the churn does. I think that's a real difference. The fact that it bottoms out in exchange today versus it bottomed out in divinity previously. And what's it going to bottom out in tomorrow?
Right, because even though that's a great question. But even though like Athens was like a market society, for instance, and like that was what Plato was like critiquing in the Republic, is like we've given ourselves over to the market too much and it's making us into nihilists.
Yeah.
And we're going to destroy ourselves. And that's kind of what happened. Like, even though that's true, there was still, even there's still this stopgap of like, yeah, but the citizens can just say, no, we're closing the port. Like that political option is always on the table.
Yeah.
And the oracle could convince the citizens, look, God told me we need to close the port. Like that could totally happen in that world. Whereas like in our world, we have no mechanism for turning the fucker off. No, it's not possible. The fucking handle broke off.
Yeah.
You know, the shit is running.
Yeah,
and that's also different. That is different.
There's a weird inversion here, right? Which is also that capital itself becomes deified.
Yep.
Right. Like, so look.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
I go back. You know, the famous that Christ flipping over the tables, the money lending tables at the temple. What were they doing? They were doing the proto version of capital, which was usury, right? The one time that he raged out, it was on the proto version of MCM Prime, which was using money to make more money, right? And that very process is precisely what usurped Christ as God and Christ's Father as God and took the position of God.
What?
And so
100%.
I think
so no, I just think it's a fundamental moment where you see this antagonism between the old symbolic orders rooted in God's qualitative value systems opposed to our God of economic exchange, capital accumulation, which is all quantity-based valuations.
Quality versus
and it is
quantity.
like a fucking, and it is like a fucking death cult. Because like, I just think about the fact that like no one is even talking. It's not even on the table to like discuss like these nuclear weapons that like now more countries have than ever before. And we just don't think about them. We're just like, that's not a thing to discuss. That's just like part of the world. That's it. And I'm like, that's fucking nut. That's so much more dangerous than the Cold War. Like the Cold War was like, everyone's paranoid about nuclear weapons and we're thinking about it all the time and it's scary as fuck. That is a safer fucking world where everyone's afraid of the bomb than the world now where we just accept it as like, this is here and we don't even fucking talk about it. So much more dangerous today. So much worse.
We just kind of
this whole thing that was going around.
More. We just started building more of them. We just started increasing our fucking nuclear stockpiles.
Yeah, dude.
Like, okay, can I just pivot to one just completely random question because it's been on my mind the last couple of days, and Nance, I've meant to ask it to you. But look, there's this thought experiment, Rocco's basilisks. And so the idea is that in the future, as artificial intelligence develops, it's going to become more and more aware of all of our online activity, and it will have combed through all of the everything ever posted on the internet. So it's going to become aware of the people who were against artificial intelligence and the people who were for it. And it's going to understand in its mind, it'll view itself as a good. And so anybody who was out to stop it will be retroactively treated as bad. The one part of this thought experiment I don't understand is that it says, then the AI will create simulated versions of the people who were trying to stop it, and it will punish those simulations indefinitely for trying. Here's the thing. Why should I give a fuck if, like, a simulated version of me? In what sense? Like, what? How does this make any fucking sense?
It's because the people who like Rocco's basilisk don't make a distinction because they're functionalists. So they think that a subject can be reproduced just by like Ray Kurzweil legitimately thinks he can resurrect his dead father. Ray Kurzweil's life works.
Does he still have his brain?
No, I don't think
he thinks he can do it without his brain.
Yeah. Like he thinks he can genuinely resurrect him and recreate him and turn him into the same type of creatures that we are in some sense, because it would be like in a silicon substrate. But like these people are functionalists. These people reject undecidability. These people reject the surplus. Like they reject our type of subject. They hold on.
On the basis of what? Like, does he think like photos and video footage of his dad is enough to do? Like, does he think he can resurrect Beethoven?
And yeah, I'm pretty sure he said that. But writings.
Are you serious?
Like if you can,
that's so fucking
these
crazy.
people in general, that's like they're all functionalists. A table, as long as something is acting as a table, it's a table, and that's all it is, and that's all it needs to be. A person, as long as a person is acting like a person, then they are a person.
So that Tupac hologram that performed like 10 years ago at Coachella, that's Tupac?
That was actually Tupac in that moment.
From a functionalist perspective, yeah.
I'm never buying functionalist ontology if this is what it is.
It is. And so they think that if they can create a computer system that can do all the things that your brain does, then you will have interiority and you will have subjective experience, and you should care, because in that world you will exist once again, and it won't be you as you are today, but it will be you as you will be in the future, and it will have interiority and it will suffer. So
this is what happens when a culture just becomes like entirely relativistic in regards to truth, which is like by definition, it's so stupid because like by definition of truth, it's not relative. But it's like, this is what happens when we just decide like, you end up not being able to distinguish at all between simulation and reality. Like there's just no difference.
And that's functionalism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think we will pull off time travel before we literally resurrect Beethoven.
I think we'll never. I believe that every subject is a singular subject. I think we'll never resurrect Beethoven.
No, well, I think you could if you pulled off time. If you pulled off time travel, you could in a way resurrect Beethoven.
Well, you just go back and get it.
That's not resurrecting.
Yeah.
That's just
bringing
borrowing.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about kind of relates to this, like truth. There's no way to distinguish truth from simulation. Today I was thinking about like conspiracy theorists and like radical leftists. I used to love listening to Art Bell and George Norrie on the radio, AM fucking coast to coast radio, all the people talking about like aliens and fucking all this shit, reptilians and shit like that. And recently there's been a lot of shit going on in the world, but recently fucking Donald Trump released 156 UFO files. I think it was 150 something. They promised thousands of files about aliens and UFOs.
Chance, did you see that he posted a photo of himself with an alien?
Yeah, that video. He sent me that video. He posted on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
He put on his Trump Twitter, Truth. He put a photo, an AI photo of him and an alien at like, what the fuck is going on? But so there's been a lot of spooky hocus pocus
meet me
bullshit. And one of the many narratives that's going on right now is that like scientists are disappearing. And that.
Yeah, I have a friend who sent me like one of those like conspiracy theory little TikTok videos. I was like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, news to me.
There's like a dozen or so, in quotes, scientists who have disappeared recently. I looked into it because that piqued my interest. I was like, oh, you mean like nuclear scientists and all these like actual scientists are getting murked? Like they're getting CIA, they're getting fucking Epstein.
Black bagged.
Yeah, that interested me. So I looked into it. Turns out it's not true. There were a few. There was one guy who was having marital issues. He like fucking hiked off into the woods and disappeared. There was that shooting in Maryland or Rhode Island or something a few months ago where somebody suffering from mental issues went and shot up a university. And there have been maybe a couple more high profile people who have died recently. And then there's been like a dozen conspiracy theorists who have died. And for whatever reason, people are lumping all these conspiracy theorists in with all these like nuclear physicists and stuff to make it more sensational, to say like 14 scientists have died. But it's all bullshit. It's all explainable. It's all normal, everyday, average bullshit. But it got me thinking about like, I've known people and I had someone close to me, she killed herself and she was a normal person. And then over the course of a couple of years, she fell further and further into like conspiracy shit on the internet. And it was tragic just to watch her like deteriorate. She was into the Mandela effect. And then she started following this guy who he like could predict earthquakes. And because he could predict earthquakes, global warming was really a cover up to do Jeffrey Epstein style stuff to a bunch of kids and aliens and more wacko shit. She was an older woman and she lived alone and she didn't have any friends and stuff. And it really sucked, but you know, she fucking killed herself. And I don't know, it just sucks. And I started thinking about the other day when we were talking to Chris said, he said, I believe that political parties are more intelligent than the individual members of that party. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know, the wisdom of the crowd. But it got me thinking along these lines. And I was thinking about conspiracy theorists and radical activists and collective intelligence. And I don't necessarily know if it's true that in every case, the collectivity is more intelligent than the individual. Now, I do believe
Marxists are so much dumber than Marx, and they've always been.
That's a great point, dude. That's a fucking great point.
I wonder what Chris would say to that.
That's a great point.
Can we bookmark that question?
I could say it in a way that would flatter Chris also, is that the last Marxist is
far more intelligent.
Far more intelligent than the rest of the Marxists out there.
But it got me thinking, and Mikey, the other day we were talking about healthcare and like in order for singularity or particularity to flourish and thrive, we need a robust collectivity or a robust universality. And so there's this tension between the collective and the individual. And they're both important. They both matter. We need a robust collectivity so we can have healthy, flourishing singularities. Yes. However, I don't know if it's true in every case that the collective is more intelligent than the individual. What I think, like why I think it's detrimental for people to fall out of society and when they lose their friends and they, oh, I don't watch the mainstream news anymore. I only listen to Captain Buttfuck Alien Sauce on the fucking internet. Like all this stuff, like where it becomes dangerous and when people actually start to do dumb shit, it's not because the individual is stupid, but it's because when you fall out of the mainstream, like you become objectified. Like people say diversity is our strength and diversity is our greatest strength and all that. And yeah, sure, maybe, but also maybe not. I don't fucking know. But it's true that diversity is constitutive of like who and what we are. Like we belong to the collectivity. Like we are languaged creatures. I am not me in isolation. I am not me on my own. I am necessarily constituted of my situation, my material conditions, where I live, where I'm from, the language I speak, and so on and so on. So it's not to say that like the collective is more intelligent than the individual, and that's a hard and fast point, and we should always stick to that. But it is to say that like without the collective, the individual atrophies and the individual starts to objectify themselves. And either as the conspiracy theorist who kills
both
himself.
Ways. It's a feedback. It goes both ways because without the individual, the collective will become really fucking stupid. Like without the individual making themselves an individual distinct from the collective, the individual as such, without them doing that, then there has to be this. If there's not a virtuous circle, there's going to be a negative, a trophic circle, right? Like this collective is composed of individuals who need to establish themselves as individuals separate from the collective in order for the collective to stay healthy.
Yeah.
You know, it's porque no los dos.
Yeah. Right. It's Nietzsche quote time. Famous quote. In individuals, madness is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule.
So as opposed to the wisdom of crowds, we're talking about the madness of crowds.
Which we have to do. I mean, but look, I get the thing like when we were talking to Chris and it's like Hegelian Geist or collective intelligibility. Obviously, me, you, us, hell, I mean, Einstein, Darwin, Hegel, no individual has intelligibility without collective intelligibility.
Yeah.
So there's that, but there's certainly the problem of herd mentality.
Yeah.
Of mob logic. And if that overtakes, I mean, it's almost like the fever of a collective, right? You know, a fever dream or something befalls a collectivity, a social group. The one that doesn't fall victim to that seems to be more intelligent than the group at that point. And
well, I mean,
what's that famous photo? Isn't there like a crowd of Nazis zig heiling, and there's one guy who's standing there with his arms crossed?
Yeah.
Like, in a sense, can't you say that guy's much smarter than the collective surrounding him?
Well, I think on that, this feature of mad crowds versus wise crowds, I do think it's, you know, the wisdom of crowds bears out largely, but I think the madness of crowds also bears out. You know, I think we've all seen it, like mob mentality. You get, or what's the thing? A person is smart. People are dumb, stupid, selfish animals, whatever the Men in Black quote.
Men in Black quote.
This is also true. I think the feature of the wise crowd is diversity, ironically enough. So I think when you draw away from the mainstream, you are necessarily drawing into an identity or a positivity. So like conspiracy theorists or radical activists of the left or of the right or radical centrists. Now, you dumb fucking assholes. I fucking can't stand people who talk about radical centralism. Fuck you guys. Fight me. You're dumb. But there's people on the internet. Anyway.
But don't you think? I think like intent matters, because like when you go away from the crowd, and your intention is just to go away from the crowd, like that's it. that's the end of your intention is I have to remove myself from the collective.
Yeah.
That's when like bad shit happens. But if your intention is to step away from the crowd in order to come back to the crowd at a later time when you're smarter.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like, I think when you step away from the crowd, or when you step away from the mainstream, or even fall out of the mainstream because you can't afford it or whatever, like, if you are seeking affirmation, if you are seeking an identity, or if you're seeking like a positivity, a collective with whom to identify, that's when dangerous shit starts to happen. That the people who fucking shoot themselves from conspiracy theories on the internet, it's not because they're doing it in isolation. It's because they become objectified, and everyone else they talk to is a fucking conspiracy theorist who believes in the reptile alien, fucking global warming, kid fucker, all this stuff. And all the radical leftists, they're all radical leftists, and all the Nazis, they're all Nazis. So, like, the strength of the mainstream is the diversity, and not just because it's diverse, but because it's negation, it's contradiction, it's self-overcoming. It's coming up against your own limits and being forced to encounter the other and all that.
It's anti-toxic positivity.
Yeah. But when you fall out of that and you fall into an identity, whatever identity that is, I think that's when you become stupid. And smaller crowds can fall out. Like, the Nazis were a crowd, absolutely, but they were a positivistic crowd. You belonged to the Nazi party, whereas none of us belong in the mainstream.
There's also a sense in which, like, when we say collectivity, do we mean the totality of actually existing humans that make up the collectivity, or are we talking about the symbolic order of that collectivity? There's a distinction there to be made. Like, the English language as a symbolic order has more insight and knowledge into the English language than I myself have.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So there's that distinction between the virtual symbolic order of a collectivity and the actual members of it. And I'm not sure who Chris had in mind.
Yeah.
Is he talking about the actual members of a Marxist collective have more intelligence than every individual, or is it the symbolic matrix that has it?
The symbolic matrix of Marxism.
Yeah. I think Chris meant it in that way. Like, I'm not trying to say Chris is wrong. Like, I agree with Chris, but it got me thinking. And I was like, well, why do I agree with Chris? And what do I think Chris really meant when he said this? I don't think he meant the dumb version of it, of like, oh, the collective is always more intelligent than the individual. Because we could see, I think Nazism is pretty fucking stupid. So I think the one guy with his arms crossed is more intelligent than the Nazi collective. But yeah, I think Chris meant it in the way.
We also talking about different forms of intelligence in this case.
Well, and then intelligence is such a fucking word, man.
But there's also even a weird sense in which, like, there's a weird sense in which that the Nazi collective could understand something which the guy folding his arms doesn't understand. Because he could be protesting because he's like, this is stupid. Whereas the Nazi collective is like, yeah, we know. Like, that's the quiet part. The Nazi collective understands that, like, that the point is to be stupid. This is an anti-intellectual movement. We're not trying to be smart. We're trying to just, that's the quiet part, you know?
Yeah. And there's the other dimension of it, which is the guy with his arms folded can be viewed as stupid
because he's about to get murked.
Viewed from certain criteria. Like, are you trying to get yourself murked?
Yeah.
Like, so, but that's where you come into human intelligence.
Yep.
Does human intelligence value self-destruction or hold self-destruction up as a marker of intelligence, which would completely go against functionalism?
Yeah. I think.
Wait, say that one more time.
If human intelligence views the willingness to self-destruct as a marker of intelligence, that goes against functionalist criteria.
How do you comport this with the dark forest? I like that. I mean, but like, what about the dark forest theory? Whereas, like, the point is to not self-destruct by shutting up, and that's the marker of intelligence.
And this is where we're just different than Bogna, which is, I think at this point, like there's jouissance or death drive in the risk of encountering the other.
Yeah, I like Bogna a lot.
And that is a form of human intelligence.
I like Bogna a lot, and I hope we can talk to her again about all kinds of stuff. But I think she's a functionalist when it comes to intelligence.
And I would compare the like Homo sapiens and Neanderthals there, because like on like like Neanderthals lived in like extremely inbred small communities, and one of the reasons why they're not walking around like as a large population is because they were insular and inbred, and so they did the safe thing.
Yeah,
they kept together, but by doing that they encountered all of these genetic fuck ups where the dumbass risk taking Homo sapiens like we're fucking everything, including Neanderthals. Like,
fuck yeah, dude.
And going everywhere, you know, like, but who's still who prospered? It's the kind of dumbass throw caution to the wind intelligence of the Homo sapien. You know?
That's a good point, dude. That's a good fucking point. Travel to Europe and get some of that Neanderthal trim, and then go down to Indonesia, get some of that Homo florensis strange.
That Hobbit strange.
Yeah, dude.
And we all end up with hantavirus.
Oh, Jesus, dude. Hantavirus. That's another fucking crazy thing in the news cycle. There's one more thing I wanted to bring up. I don't know. It could go on for too long. I don't want it to go on for too long. There are people who are using LLMs, and they have found that sperm whales have a phonetic alphabet, and they have a phonetic language, and it's very similar to Chinese in structure, like syntax.
The fuck?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And they're listening to dolphins and other cetaceans, and I think that's super interesting. There's also other people who are trying to do it with like deers and shit, and it's like, no, don't be fucking stupid, dude.
What about dog? I know you want to talk to Winston.
Oh my God, I would love to talk to my dogs, dude. I don't think dogs have language, but I do think whales have language. But the way they're going about it, they're using LLMs to kind of investigate whale language. And I think, I don't know, it's interesting to think about, because the way we use LLMs, like we presuppose meaning, but from the perspective of the LLM, it's all syntax. There's no semantics. And LLMs, because backpropagation and transformer models and neural nets and gradient descent, they are able to arrive at what appears to be legible, coherent semantic meaning. But there's no semantics in LLMs. It's pure syntax. We presuppose the meaning. We presuppose the semantics. I think it's interesting.
Is this just a way of saying pure Chinese room?
Yeah, like LLMs are pure Chinese rooms. But at the surface level, they appear to use language in the same way that we use language.
Simulate it.
Yeah, but when they're applying that to whales, they're actually able to do this, and it spits back results, and it can actually predict what the whales are going to say. Like they can give it context, and they can say, what is Timmy the whale going to say?
Basically, if they listen to a generic conversation with us, how's your day going? Oh, it's fine.
Exactly.
It can kind of predict, somebody's going to reference the weather.
Yeah, dude.
-3, 2.
How's the weather? Yeah, and they're doing it with whales now, and I think that's pretty amazing, because that suggests, it's not proof, because there's no semantic there, like it's all just like pure formal. There's no content, but it does suggest that whales have complex language, at least sperm whales, and they're applying it to other dolphins and other whales.
Dude, they straight up do. They do. Like,
they do. That's 100%. So dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Nance, can I just say,
you know what's something fucking depressing?
Think,
what?
No, this isn't like a long thing. I'll just say, I kind of think dogs have something, because here's the thing. I have seen dogs. I'm sorry, they comprehend human sentences. And I don't know how to make sense of it, but I'm like, they understand more than just like,
they do
connect this one word to that one object.
They do seem to have a strange intuition. Because I can say, Winston, go to bed, and he'll go get in his bed. And that's fucking weird. Or dogs do seem to have a strange intuition of human language. But I also think like modern humans are so wrapped up with modern dogs. Like we're like a symbiotic relationship at this point. I don't think we would be us without dogs, and dogs wouldn't be dogs without us. So yeah, I think dogs are 1 foot in, 1 foot out when it comes to language. But like properly, whales,
Yeah, they're not hanging out with us on a daily basis.
Yeah, and they're out there fucking speaking Chinese to each other, and it's pretty fucking cool.
Have they done this with chimps at all?
I not as far as I can tell. All the stuff I looked into.
Well, they've gotten.
Oh, there was that Robin Williams movie, wasn't there?
I think we're pretty good on understanding how much like primates, how much that they can understand and use language because we teach them sign language.
Yeah.
And so you can get to a point where they like, we know exactly like how much language that they can handle. Yeah. And it's an impressive amount. It's just like, it's not as much as obviously like a human.
If anybody wants a robust introduction to primates using sign language, just check out Congo.
Yeah.
Congo.
I'm joking. Watch Project X and not the movie about the party, the one with Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt.
Okay, yeah. It's like, wait, the house party movie?
You don't have to watch Congo.
What's the Robin Williams chimp movie? Or gorilla? Is it a gorilla or it's a gorilla?
Did you guys hear the sad whale news that in 2025 we noticed that they stopped singing, like the blue whales? We noticed that they like went quiet because they're fucking starving to death.
Whoa.
And then this year 15, like a record number of gray whales washed up dead on shore in Washington because they're fucking starving because of the algae blooms because of climate change.
Dude. That doesn't matter, Sean. GDP.
Exactly. Dude, that's the, like, I like, this is the most like tree hugger fucking thing in the world to say, but I'm like, that is reason enough to like stop everything, is that the whales stop singing. Like, stop everything. Dude, they're sad. This is fucked. They're like the most like,
and if anybody can represent planet Earth, I think
up.
Any species, I'm letting them represent the planet.
Fuck yeah.
And they've stopped singing. So I'm going to say Earth itself stopped singing.
The SETI project needs to beam like whale thought into space.
Yeah.
Like we need in the capsules to send to other planets. We just need like whale language.
Whoa.
Like,
are we saying that? I'm not saying that whales are communist, but I'm definitely saying they're anti-capitalist.
I think wouldn't it be cool if in the next couple of years with this, and it's called WHAM, Whale Acoustics Model. So instead of LLM, large language model, they call it WHAM, Whale Acoustics Model. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, because this, we find out that they're like super intelligent communists? I'm telling you, dude.
Here's what I need.
Posadism has been true all along. Fuck all you guys.
All right, here's my dream.
Posadism.
All right, here's my dream. Yes, I want the whales in on it. I want the dolphins in on it. I want chimpanzees in on it. I want dogs in on it. But here's my dream, is that artificial intelligence comes to realize that the animal with the most intelligent, complicated language are lemurs. And those lemurs actually are communistic. And the AI agrees with the lemurs.
Yeah.
And it itself is communistic. And then we get to be the ones to break the news to Nick.
How about them apples, Nick? How about them apples?
We love you, Nick.
I mean, I think that's as good a place to end this one as any. Dear reader, thanks for your time and attention. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will catch you when we catch you. Lots of great things. Check out patreon.com/The Dangerous Maybe. Check out YouTube and Substack, The Dangerous Maybe. Check out Substack, Hail the Shining Future. And do something with your life. Do something edifying for yourself. Turn off the computer, turn off your phone, go eat ice cream, or draw a picture, or read a poem, or do something for no other reason than because you want to. And sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. We'll catch you when we catch you.
Can I just say last thing? You and I, we have a special interview planned for tomorrow. Yeah. And we're very excited for you guys to see who the guest is. So stay tuned. It'll be on The Dangerous Maybe.
Yeah,
but,
it's gonna be a good one.
We're really looking forward to this. It's special to us.
Yeah.
Peace out, the internet.
Over and out.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Bella says bye, internet.
Bye, Bella.
Hi, Bella.